Welcome to the Hangar Deck Podcast. We bring amazing aviation talk and interviews for the aviation enthusiast. You are listening to www.thehangardeck.com with host Pitch Lock Pete and the Hangar Deck crew. This show is brought to you by Leading Edge Aviation Consultants. Pre-flight is complete and the crew is strapping in. Stand by for Pitch Lock Pete and the Hangar Deck team at the Hangar Deck Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Hangar Deck Podcast.
All right, welcome back to the Hangar Deck. February 2019, and we're back in studio. We're on a roll, guys. We're on a roll. The last episode was pretty awesome. We got to talk to a good friend of ours with the Teal Group and talked about all kinds of interesting stuff, didn't we, Steve?
We absolutely did. It was a great conversation, seeing where the industry's going and just getting great highlights and perspectives.
Yeah, awesome stuff. So go check out episode 104 on www.thehangardeck.com, and all your other great episodes you can find on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play. So welcome back to the show. It is February 2019, and it is winter. In the Northeast, well, around the country, it's winter time. And not much going on for air shows on the East Coast. Everybody, if you're following the boards, you could see a lot of heavy maintenance going on, getting airplanes prepared for the upcoming 2019 season. And, boy, it's going to be a doozy. You could take a look at the ones that we're picking for the most interesting air shows up on our website. Go to our calendar page and see all of the calendar events for the air shows that we're interested in going to. Right, Steve?
Absolutely. I can't wait.
All right. So tonight, we're in the studio. And we do have a special guest. So, with air show season coming up and the big, hoopla about air shows this year, we know that one of the teams out there that I've been wanting to talk to for a while, and I've seen them many, many times before, the GEICO Skytypers. Sponsored by GEICO, and you might have seen them up and down the East Coast of the United States. They're all over the place at these air shows, and we've got one of the pilots here with us today. I'd like to welcome pilot Steve Kapur. Welcome to the show, Steve. How you doing?
Doing great, Pete. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, I really I've been wanting to talk to the GEICO Skytypers for a while now. I know every show that we don't get to attend, but we get to see you guys out and about. So, tell us a little bit about yourself, Steve, and how you got associated with the GEICO Skytypers.
Well, I've been a pilot for many years. I was actually working in marketing for a prior sponsor when I met the team, began flying with them, and the joke goes, when they lost the sponsor, they kept the marketing guy. So I've been with them now for I think it's somewhere between 16 and 18 years. It's been a long time.
Oh, wow.
And this obviously it's a wonderful experience, great time. Had an opportunity to fly with some really talented pilots over the years. I love aviation. I work in the field now. Made the transition last year, and I'm glad to be here.
Great, awesome. Well, welcome to that transition to full-time aviation, and 18 years with the GEICO Skytypers. You should know a thing or two about these airplanes. So, can you tell us specifically which type? Now, I think for us rivet counters out here, the S&J or the T6 trainer is the airplane of choice, but there are so many models of that T6. Which ones do the GEICO Skytypers choose?
We have 4 SNJ2s, and they are they're the Navy version, as you know, and we have two T6s in the group now, as we've retired. If we've retired the S&Js, which are far more scarce. It's much harder to get your hands on one of those. At one point, there were only 11 left, and we had 6 of them.
Wow.
So as we've taken them out of service, unfortunately, there's fewer and fewer. So, it's you can tell. If you're an aficionado, you can tell if you look at the aircraft that the T6s have kind of a pointier tail. This SNJ2s is a much more rounded, larger rudder, if you come and watch us closely, you'll see the difference.
Now, I was watching some videos the other day on YouTube of you guys doing some of your aerobatics, and I noticed the tail right off the bat, and I said to Steve, I'm like, "Hey, this is the difference between SNJ2 and a newer version of the T6 aircraft," and that stood out to me. But like you said, it's got to be a trained eyeball to see that curve in that rudder.
Yeah. Well, actually, the SNJ2s are older than the T6s. The SNJs, that we have were 1940 vintage, and they're simpler. They're not quite as complex. They also have longer legs. I mean, they have larger fuel tanks, and they have a little stiffer undercarriage for coming aboard the boat because obviously, naval aviators were trained to land on the aircraft carrier. So, we've removed tail hooks, and we've removed the guns that they had and everything else. But they are actually older than the T6s that we own.
Wow, that's pretty cool. That's awesome. So when we talk about the GEICO team performing at an air show, there's a lot of questions, Steve, that come to my mind, and being in aviation for a long time, I've never been part of an air show display team. I've always participated while on active duty at air shows, but never as a flight demonstration team. There has to be a ton of coordination within the team. Can you tell us about a little bit of that coordination, maybe positioning, equipment, personnel, all that kind of detailed stuff for our audience?
Yeah, I mean, as they say, there are a lot of moving parts. So, on any given weekend, you've got, 6 or 8 pilots present. You've got 3 maintainers. You've got a public affairs crew of at least 2. You've got a truck driver. We bring a 43-foot hauler. It's an old NASCAR hauler to all our shows, which we operate out of. The maintainers have about half of it for a shop, and we keep spares and whatnot overhead where they used to keep the cars. And then we have crew spaces. We have our own briefing spaces with the AV and everything, and we've got lockers and some of the other things that you need to manage a group of people like that. So typically, it is a big operation. I mean, we're nowhere near like one of the jet teams that fly in a Fat Albert or a C-141 with all their spares and everything on it and their personnel. And we only have 3 maintainers with us, as opposed to probably half a dozen per aircraft with the jet teams. But it's still a pretty complex operation. Our boss, Larry Arkin, works very hard at managing the logistics and stuff that go into the team actually making an appearance somewhere.
Wow, that is a ton of stuff. I can only imagine jet teams and then prop teams, especially recip. That goes to show you how much maintenance man hours go into that type of aircraft than an F-18 Hornet or an F-16 Falcon. And those 3 guys have to be busy, though.
They are, and let's be honest. I mean, if you were to staff correctly, you'd have more people than that. But your civilian team, and money is tight and very important. And we need to be able to show a value to our sponsor. I mean, the relationship between us and GEICO is a terrific relationship. We really enjoy the hell out of working with them because they're just wonderful people. They're smart people. But we owe them in exchange for them letting us go, live our dreams, we owe them exposure for their brand. And they get a lot. I mean, obviously the truck is painted with GEICO, and the aircraft, it's all over the aircraft and our uniforms and everything. So, that crew does have a pretty significant presence on site.
Oh yeah.
But it's ultimately it's our mission is to earn notoriety and leverage that to help promote the GEICO brand.
That's awesome. And I love watching the team, the colors, and it's just like the military teams, because I know some of you even have military backgrounds. When we talk about this winter cycle, what kind of aircraft overhaul maintenance type activities are going on? I think the airplane are based out of New York, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah, our home base is Farmingdale, FRG, in New York. We also have kind of a winter base, which is Lakeland, Florida, LAL. And, we keep a number of the aircraft, most of the aircraft in Florida over the winter to spare them the winter, in New York.
Right. The environment.
And our maintainers, they're on a rolling maintenance schedule, so they do some of the 100-hour inspections and whatnot are done actually, during the season where we have breaks and stuff. But any heavy maintenance that has to be done for the winter, or if an aircraft needs to be painted, or or a smoke system installed or something like that. That typically is done off season, and we try to paint, one of them each year. I know, I mentioned we have two T6s now. One of the other S&Js retired, so we're in the process of getting the smoke system that we use set up in that. I'm sure it's probably done by now, there's kind of the big projects. We have a sponsor by the name of Aspen Avionics, and wonderful people make they make glass cockpits, and we've got those now in all the aircraft. Well, that was a pretty big project, and that was over the winter one year that all that stuff was installed.
Wow. I love it. Glass cockpits on a SNJ2 or T6. Hey,
it's kind of it's a really interesting contrast. I mean, I love that contrast, because here you've got an aircraft that was built in 1940, and we're flying around with some of the absolute latest and greatest in terms of gee whiz instruments. I mean, we're feeding color moving map display of weather and our navigation and everything, and into an airplane that was built before any of us were born.
Wow, I'm in awe. I've seen warbirds before in with a glass cockpit. It's pretty neat looking. So. Hey, we're talking with GEICO Skytyper Steve Kapoor. We'll be right back after this short message.
Aviators Hotline has been bringing buyers and sellers together for 39 years. The aviation community has come to rely on them to assist in the buying and selling of single, twin, and turboprop aircraft, as well as parts and services. Published monthly in print and digital format, Aviators Hotline is positioned to be your true marketing solution with multimedia options. Visit aviatorshotline.com or aircraftforsale.com for more information.
Yeah, you got to go check out Aviator Hotline magazine. Just released a new episode for their Warbird line. It's I love reading that thing. It's pretty good online magazine. So we're back in studio. It's February 2019. We have the pleasure of talking with GEICO Skytyper Steve Kapoor. He's talking about his glass cockpits and S&Js in the upcoming season. We haven't even gotten to that yet, but what do you think there, producer Steve?
I can't wait. So you guys start off at Sun in the Fun in Orlando. So how many shows are typically in a season, and where can we find you this year?
Well, we're going to be doing 15 shows again this season. We begin with Sun and Fun in April, our first week in April there, and we finish the season at the Blue Angels Homecoming Show in Pensacola. In between that, we'll be at Beaufort, South Carolina. We'll be at Fort Lauderdale for the Air and Sea Show. And we'll be at Andrews Air Force Base this year, Jones Beach. We're going to be appearing at Smyrna, Tennessee, Dayton, Ohio. That's kind of a new one. We haven't been to Dayton in some time. We actually haven't been to Andrews in some time either. But so that's all exciting to us. New venues are a lot of fun for us too. We're going to be at Atlantic City. We're going to be flying at the New York Air Show, which is at Stewart Air Force Base in New York. And we'll be at Cleveland this year, which we haven't appeared at in probably 15 years. It's been a long time. We're very excited to return to that show. We'll be at NAS Oceana. We're going to be at Atlanta, which is a new one also. New show, new us. And we'll be at Jack's Beach, and we in Punta Gorda in Florida, and then like I said, we finish with the Blues at Pensacola.
That's a great show season, and there's a few of them that right off the bat, I think it's May 11th at Andrews Air Force Base. Steve, I'm going to come and buy you a soda or
cool.
a drink, refreshing drink of your for doing this show of your request, because we'll be there on May 11th. And the other one I'm also looking forward to is the Atlantic City Air Show, because I think it's right on the ocean there, right?
It's right. Basically, you perform over the water, and the audience, if you will, sits on the beach. We do several shows like that. I mean, Jones Beach is like that as well. And one of the kind of cool elements that we add to some of those shows is Miss GEICO, the speedboat, makes an appearance with us. So we do our air demonstration, and then the solos break off, and they actually kind of do a tongue-in-cheek kind of race with the speedboat, which is a lot of fun.
That's pretty neat stuff there. Wow. And you'll be
and Miss GEICO is like several world champion offshore racing and stuff, so she really moves pretty quickly.
Yeah, offshore powerboat. I think there's a picture of the airplane and the speedboat on your website, or I think I saw. Yeah, I did. So let's talk about Skytyping itself for a few minutes. Like you do, there's a wonderful formation air show that you guys put on, and it's second to none, man. I mean, it's when a bunch of S&Js or T6s come by, and those props smack the air. It is a sound of a sound of freedom. That's what I can call it.
Right. Most of the kids, we find a lot of the kids really like that because sometimes for the little ones, the jets are just too loud. So we are first and foremost an air show demonstration team. But we also do this thing called Skytyping, and Skytyping is kind of a different way of skywriting. We use 5 of our airplanes in a line abreast formation, and we create these giant dot matrix style letters in the sky. So the advantage of Skytyping is it's a lot faster. So the wind aloft affects it less. And you were able to do more complex messages. We can do messages, that are 20 or 25 characters long in less than 2 minutes.
Wow.
And each of the letters that we do are as tall as the Empire State Building, and the messages can be, 6 to 8 miles long, depending on how complex they are.
Wow.
So on a clear day, you can see our messages from 15 miles in any direction.
That is pretty neat.
That's impressive.
Now, what I found, and maybe Steve, you can elaborate on this, is the technology that goes behind Skytyping. It's not just how does the dot matrix smoke trail know when to come from the airplane and not? Can you talk about that?
Well, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, basically, when we're Skytyping, Larry has a touchscreen, tablet type computer on his knee board, and so he will run the system. The system is basically like a Wi-Fi network. It links up the aircraft in the formation, and then it's controlled by this computer. So I fly lead, and Larry is in the front operating the computer, and he selects messages from the queue and then runs them. And what happens is that computer commands the smoke systems in each of the 5 linked up airplanes to put out a puff of smoke just at the right time. So the art of it is flying a line abreast formation, which, if you've flown any formation, is a lot more difficult than flying a delta, or, flying in close. We're a couple wing lengths apart, and we're in a straight line going across, like the printing head on a dot matrix printer. And the computer commands the smoke systems. The pilots fly the airplanes, and what you end up with is large dot matrix letters. We typically do this anywhere from 8 to 10,000 feet in the air, so that's what gives it this incredible visibility from 15 miles away.
It's incredible. The technology, I never knew that until I started reading up on it, and I think it's pretty neat that you're taking a World War II vintage Warbird and you're applying this new technology to it, and the end result is something that's never been seen. It's too complex. It's too complex. Go ahead.
These airframes have been, like you said, built in 1940. We've got, the technology in them is actually pretty amazing between Aspen's glass panels, between the technology to run the Skytyping system. But when we appear at an air show, we're demonstrating maneuvers that were taught to these aviators back in the Second World War, the greatest generation, trained in these aircraft, and didn't matter whether they were flying fighters or they were flying bombers. I'm told they actually started bomber pilots in these aircraft as well. So we do like a 18-minute low-level precision flying demonstration, and we feature formations, maneuvers, and tactics that were taught to these military aviators in World War II and even in the Korean War.
Wow, that's crazy awesome.
So I know me and Pete want to be on the team, but how do you guys go about finding your pilots, your operations people, your maintenance personnel to be on the team?
Well, we've been blessed with some really great people over the years, and often, often the referrals come from team members. So most of our guys are airline pilots or work with the airlines, and they'll meet somebody who flew this or flew that in the service and is interested in learning more about the team and whatnot. And we've gotten quite a few people recommended to us that way. It's a pretty unique individual. I mean, most of them, like you said, most of them are military trained because they have to be good with formation flying. Then the thing that's kind of the not the fly in the ointment, but the challenge, if you will, is they also have to learn to fly tail draggers, which is a totally different beast than something with a nose wheel on it. Those are kind of two major skills that they've got to have. We run the squadron like a military squadron for a number of reasons. One, this is something that most of everybody's familiar with, but beyond that, when you conduct operations that way, all the military, the way the military runs their squadrons is done for safety and efficiency. We're basically taking advantage of some of that learning, when we the way we run our squadron as well.
That's great. That's great. Practice is essential to a successful air show routine, and you guys have a great routine. If you haven't seen it, you got to go to one of these events, one of these 15 events this year, and watch these guys. 2019, the season I think kicks off in April, and I'm sure there's a couple of practice routines that you guys are scheduled to do. But are there any new maneuvers that we can expect from the GEICO team this year?
Well, the routine was new last year, and it's what happens is we've got one of the guys, our lead solo, Steve Salmers, develops our routine. So I tease him and tell him he's the choreographer. But from that. he puts together a really cool show. Sometimes it stretches us a little bit. We have to make some modifications to it, to make sure it's safe and to make sure all the guys can fly it. So it goes through kind of a season of kind of massaging and finding the sweet spot, if you will. And we're there now. So we may be tweaking it a little bit more, but no significant changes are planned. We are bringing a little bit more aerobatics to the routine, as much as these airplanes are really capable of. So we've been training up on that and rehearsing that. We have a pretty thorough workup, for the season. I mean, it really starts at the end of this month with ground school. We go through, ground school recurrency on the systems and the aircraft, formation etiquette and whatnot on the ground. We walk the routine for the better part of a day before we actually go to spring camp and start flying. And we'll typically do that just maybe a week or two at the most prior to our first show. And we'll fly, we'll try and fly a couple times a day for several days to kind of get everybody back in the groove and comfortable and make sure that we've got good muscle memory, if you will, on the flying and whatnot. And then we'll roll right into the first show, which this year will be Sun and Fun, which is great because we train at the same airport where they're going to be Sun and Fun takes place. So that's all works out pretty good. So it's a pretty thorough deal. I mean, we've been, the guys have been sending back and forth information, but the aircraft and our procedures and everything, all winter. I mean, I think we probably, our season is like NASCAR. It just seems to go on and on. But at the, then there's a month or two break, and then we kind of start working up for the next season.
Right. The thing I am most amazed with formation flying, and I was able to a couple of years ago go out to Culpeper and participate in the safety brief, and I was flying with a friend of mine that has a T6. I was flying in the back and a formation of floor. It was so much fun, but the things. As an aviation enthusiast now, as a warbird, not a connoisseur, but, I'm just attracted to that whole era of flying. I didn't realize that when I saw a bunch of people pilots walking around on a hangar deck, and I didn't know what they were doing. And it was explained to me that, they're practicing their formation routine. They're walking it.
Right.
And it didn't click to me right off the bat. I was like, really? They walk it? And that's kind of what, puts that visual perspective into the pilot, into the team. So that
it's very much like, it's a visualization technique. I know a lot of athletes use it, whether you're talking about, basketball or hockey or whatever, use the same type of an approach, to visualize, talk about visualizing the game. Our workup, on a show day or on a practice day for that matter, is very, like planned to the minute. And we literally have what we call a minute by minute. It's a run of show, but it's our minute by minute plan. And, it starts with the guys, having breakfast together in the morning and, kind of getting out to the field. If we're in the BOQ, it's a short hop. If we're off campus, it can be a longer trip, but it's all planned out,
right?
So we have breakfast together. We transport to the show site, and we start our briefing sequence. We have a very formal way that we brief in terms of it goes for about 1 hour and 10 minutes, a little longer on the first day, on the rehearsal day. And there's a sequence in the way things are covered. There's obviously things like weather and the field and then getting into the maneuvers it finishes. That finishes like, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's been tapes or whatever that, with the blues kind of go through that visualization seated in their seats
Yeah.
with all the commands and everything. And so we just call that the talk through. We go through the talk through, and then from there, typically, guys will have lunch or or do some pre-flight or whatever. But then we come back together again, as you said, and we walk the routine.
Right.
Again before, and we try to go straight. We try to go straight from that to the actual flying. So and we have a specific way in which we mount up each time. There, we call it the march down.
Right.
You'll see the guys. You see the guys standing in front. You see them come to attention, salute, and mount up. And that's also kind of part of that visualization. It's part of what feels comfortable in terms of getting into the flying. And I describe it as a funnel. It's wide at the beginning, and when we're having breakfast, obviously there's a lot of joking going on, and things are being talked about that are not necessarily about flying. And as you get closer and closer to strapping the aircraft on, all the distractions kind of fall away, and there's just one focus, and that's flying the routine.
Right.
So it's all part of that. And then, afterwards, there's a march down afterwards as well. But, so that's kind of, that helps us focus. It helps us be safe. And that's kind of part of our process.
Well, geez, thank you very much, Steve. That's awesome. You're describing the whole routine for us, and our fans love it, of what a typical air show could be for the GEICO Skytyper team. And I'm sure there's all kind of radio discipline that goes on while the team is flying, and certain call signs and certain coordination through air traffic control, because it is a FAA box, a show box that you guys are restricted to. But thank you very much. So Steve, is there something you want to say to our fans that's new this year, or I think you do have a movie or a film series up on the website, don't you?
Yeah, I would invite people to come. First of all, I would invite people to come out and see us. Hopefully, we'll make some new fans this year. Like I said, there's a couple shows we're flying that we haven't flown in a while, or are brand new to us. Andrews we haven't been to in a while. Dayton is a long time coming. Cleveland, would love to get some of these folks out to some of these shows we haven't performed at in a while. They come and watch us. And then there's some great digital resources. If you go to GEICO-Skytypers.com, and there's our website. But also we have social media, like you guys. We have social media. We have GEICO Skytypers are on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're actually just launching Snapchat platform as well. And we have a YouTube channel, which has got, to your earlier point, has got significant properties on there that people can take a look at. There's a series called After the Brief, which is kind of interviews with the guys. There's a series I call The Embedded Reporter. I don't know if you guys know Rick Peterson. He's an announcer, a Canadian announcer.
Yep.
He joined us, kind of did a tongue-in-cheek kind of series, like he was embedded with the GEICO Skytypers, and it's just hilarious if you see some of that. And then we've got some music videos and some serious stuff with us flying with Rob Holland and flying with Sean Tucker and some of the others. So some stuff with us with the Blue Angels. So a lot of really cool video there.
Yeah, we'll put a link on our website and our Facebook and social media. I do follow you on Facebook, and I gotta say I love seeing the updates, and I've been watching a lot of the videos. Now, my last question, Steve's over there going, "Hey, man, you're hogging the mic." So, my last question for you is I can't recall, but I think I saw it, maybe not. Are you guys looking at 360 camera technology for the cockpits yet?
We are. We're in the process of kind of figuring that out now. It's something I've kind of wanted to do for a couple of years, and I think finally Sometimes I suggest stuff that's maybe a little out there, but I think we've got religion now, and we're going to be definitely pushing that forward. I can't tell you at this moment, what specifically we'll be doing with it, but obviously it will provide a really cool perspective for people to actually go inside the cockpit and as kind of look around. I'm thinking that putting that like in the slot plane, the number 4 would be a good location for it, because they can kind of look around, see everybody in the diamond. When we're flying a Delta, they can see all 6 aircraft.
That would be really awesome. I look forward to seeing that. Hopefully, you guys get that squared away in 2019. But I know technology is challenging to work with, and if not, the videos are just phenomenal. So go check those out on GEICO's page there. Well, what do you think there, producer Steve?
A great interview. I would like to go see them, maybe at Andrews this year.
Oh, well, you give me a call because I'll be there.
Okay.
And while I buy Steve at GEICO a frosty beverage, maybe you can buy me a frosty beverage.
Sounds like a deal.
All right. It's Steve, from all of us here at the Hangar Deck, thank you very, very much for coming on the show.
It was my pleasure, guys. Pete, Steve, I hope he lets you talk a little bit more in the future, my friend.
I'm getting used to it.
He does all the work behind this. We call him Producer Steve for a reason. So he's the guy that makes the magic happen. So,
there you go.
Yep. Thank you again, Steve, from all of us here at the Hangar Deck. We appreciate the GEICO Skytyper team, and look forward to seeing your 2019 air show.
Thanks. Come on out and see us, everybody.
All right. That's it, wrap. We'll talk to you soon.